Hey guys, well thanks for checking in. We're on a beautiful property today in St. Croix County, Wisconsin. It's got buildable land, there's tillable land, and there's wooded land, and it's all within a short commute of the Minneapolis Metro. We're gonna walk to this property. I'm gonna talk to you about how to evaluate it for price, how to evaluate it for building, and we're just gonna do a general deep dive on today's episode of The American Landman. Well, I am really excited to talk about this property, and if you've been following my vlogs, you know I break these down according to a concept that I developed called the Fab Five. The Fab Five is simply 5 indicators of why a property might have a little higher value, definitely a higher attractiveness to a potential buyer. So if you're interested in the Fab Five, go back into some of my videos. You'll see the title Fab Five, and you can learn about that. But let's just suffice to say this property has all of that. That's why it's really special, and I'm really excited to get out here and put this beautiful footage down. So I'm going to take you around this property, but let's start with its location. We're about 45 minutes as the crow flies from the Minneapolis-St. Paul Metro. You come Highway 94, Interstate 94, and north on 128 to this property. Once you get here, it's a very diverse property. We got tillable ground, we have timbered ground, we have access, we've got some dry run creek beds, and we have a building site. All these things add up to a very affordable property that is priced under $500,000. At the end of the video, I'm going to kind of break down all this. We're going to talk about price as I have it right now. And then if you're interested, you're going to kind of want to come and take a look at this. So come along for the tour. I'm going to show you some key features of this property, and I think you're going to like it. Well, the first thing I do when I approach these properties and I'm told by the seller, or I believe that they're buildables, I always look at the approach. Like, how do you get onto the property? Well, this property happens to have a service road, or at least one time that's what it was. There's a spot right here where the agricultural equipment came into this property, and these are sometimes still usable. They may not be permitted, but they're used because of the agricultural use that's been around for 100 years. But when you're buying these properties, you have to evaluate whether that access is going to be your access for your house, and that usually requires some permits and approvals. So what I would recommend you do anytime you look at a property is look for these agricultural entrances. Call the township. Ask them about their permitting process. Some are very liberal, and some will say, yeah, absolutely, not a problem. Just, tell us where you want to put it. You're going to have to put gravel and probably a culvert in. But then others are a little bit more complicated. It may require a sightline survey, meaning you must have, let's say, 400 feet of sightline to the entrance so that if there's a hill, people coming over the top have time to see you when you're exiting. Others will require a survey and then permits and the plan of what you want it to do and how you want to do it. And if you're buying the property or you haven't purchased it yet, that may require some money up front on your part, some planning on your part, and that will affect whether you get this property because you could do what you want to, or you cannot do what you want to and you change your mind. But either way, you better check into it before you buy it. Well, this here is a beautiful potential building spot, and this is where most people are going to gravitate towards when they're looking for these mixed-use properties. This is a gorgeous pasture. It's kind of set up for horses now, but if I'm a buyer, I'm going to look at this as my potential future home site. Now, there's a couple issues with that you have to be aware of. Number one is we have a dry run on the back of the camera. We got another dry run here, and it kind of splits this pasture. And while it looks dry, when you look at the FEMA floodplain maps, portions of this green area are considered floodplain. Definitely these dry runs, although they're dry most of the year, are considered wetland. Now, the owner is crossing the dry run, coming back to this pasture. Has probably been doing it for years, and it's not a problem. It's just somehow nobody cares. But when you start to build on this property, you start to pull permits. That's where it starts to become a little bit more tricky. The last thing you're going to want to do is just start building, start digging, and destroy sensitive areas. So it's always best to find out from the DNR, the local DNR specialists, have them come out here and evaluate where you want to put your home, and make sure you're not on a sensitive piece of land, because if you don't do that, there's a chance that they may tell you return it to the former way that it was, and that could cost you a lot of money bringing in fill, just putting it back together the way it was. When you're working with a realtor, sometimes the realtors just aren't even aware that these wetland disclosures are required or needed. They just may not have the experience. So as a buyer, it's up to you to know this, and hopefully the agent that you're working with can help you out. It's just always best to check, get permission, get the permits in place before you break ground, because floodplains and wetlands are sensitive to the DNR, and they don't have a sense of humor when it comes to them. Okay, well, we've entered the tillable portion of this property, probably one of the best features of the property, because it's difficult to find nice flat tillable ground on a property that's got a building site and it's got some timber. So these things together make this a very rare and rather valuable property, and that'll affect the overall price, which we'll get to. But I want to talk to you about the nuances of land and when you talk tillable ground. So on that level, yes, this is tillable ground. They're growing soybeans and corn rotation in here. But this isn't tillable ground in the sense that farmers are going to find this highly coveted. Yeah, you got about 35 acres of ground here. Yes, they're farming it. Yes, it's growing crops. But this is more of a recreational property with some tillable ground thrown in. This could be just as easily a big pasture for your horses, or it could be broken up and it could be great food plots, or you could rent it, and they definitely will. A question that I get a lot is, what will this ground rent for? And I'm going to tell you that my general answer is around $100 an acre in this part of western Wisconsin. Now, the range can be much broader. This might bring as low as 75. It's kind of a sweetheart local deal because maybe it leaves a little bit of crop standing in the corner because you're going to bow hunt over them. Or it might be as high as $150. And so it really depends. And when you write your offer on this, you're usually going to write that the lease does not transfer. It ends there. They get to harvest their crops at the end of the season. That's usually a given, but it doesn't transfer next year. And it gives you, the new owner, an opportunity to renegotiate that. But I'm going to tell you that if you're evaluating this crop land for rent, I'm going to usually tell you $100 per acre. Now here we got about 35 acres roughly, so could it be anywhere from $100 an acre, so $3,500 of income, to maybe as high as $150, and if I do my math, I'm probably around $5,000 annual rent. So there's nuances, is what I'm saying. When you look at tillable ground, you can farm it. They are farming it, but it's not tillable ground in the true sense of the word, as far as how a farmer or a land specialist will look at it. That make any sense? It's a little complicated sometimes. All right, I'm going to take you to the timbered portion of this property. Let's go. Come on, buddy. Okay, well, this is the example of what a dry run is. This is basically a dry creek bed. But at certain times of the year, there could be a lot of hydrology flowing through here from snow melt or maybe a large rain, and this could be impassable. I've seen pictures of this property where the water was 2-3 feet deep, and they tell me it even holds trout at certain times of the year. Just a little bit, maybe 80 acres away from us here off the property is Glen Hills County Park. There's a large impoundment of, it's a lake up there, and they may discharge water, and this could be the path of that. So when you find these dry runs, it's just something to be aware of. Now this one actually goes down and it splits the building area going on either side. But what's important about this is that at certain times of the year, you may not be able to get through here. It may be so wet or so full of water you just can't get to your crop fields. Now typically, I'm guessing that this is dry. It probably fills up with water a certain time of the year after a big storm, but then it empties out because it doesn't seem to hold water other than a few little pockets. So it's probably not an issue. But if you see these wetland areas, these water hydrology features, it's always best to look into it just to see what the restrictions might be with passing or building or wetland, FEMA floodplain, that sort of thing. Just something to look into, something to be aware of. Don't be afraid of it. It's just something you want to definitely know about going in. Eyes wide open is always the best policy. Okay, well, let's go ahead and wrap this video up. This is roughly 71 acres plus minus in St. Croix County, Wisconsin, which is a great county. We're only 45 minutes or so from the Minneapolis metro, an hour maybe commute to the airport. You get out here and things just quiet down, and it's just got a lot going on. I always look for threes on a property. I want in this case a building site, I want some tillable, and I want some timber. I like those habitat, we call them biomes, but just makes a property very interesting. It's got a lot of visual appeal. There's a lot you can do with it, but I would say that this is somebody's future home, a beautiful house. Come back here and hunt, ride your horses, maybe have pastures or rent the cropland. Just a lot of good features on this property. Now, this area of St. Croix County probably brings somewhere between $5,500 and $6,000 an acre, and I've got this currently priced, if I'm not mistaken, at this point as we video this, $426,000, which is $6,000 an acre. So I'm at the upper end of the range at my list price. Always a little bit opportunity for negotiation, of course, but it's because it's got a lot going on. There's just the visual quality of this, it's the overall beauty of this property with the opportunities that exist on a 71 acre parcel in this location. It's just hard to beat. So I hope that helps you kind of understand how I look at these properties, the ways that you should look at these properties. And if you're interested, anywhere in the country, give me a call, send me an email, send me a comment on this video. I'll be glad to answer your calls. I get a lot of calls from all over the country. I want to thank you guys for supporting this channel. The American Landman is a community of like-minded people that want to own, buy, manage, and sell American land. I'm sure there's American Landman in you. I want to be your guy in the land business. I'm Neil Hogger, and I'm a land specialist with Whitetail Properties Real Estate, and you've been watching The American Landman.